All right, so today we're diving into Antidote. It's this platform, and it's really changing how studios get feedback on their games.
Definitely changing the game.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
You know how crucial user feedback is in the gaming world, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can make or break a game.
Totally.
But actually gathering that feedback and then making sense of it and then figuring out how to actually use it all while racing against deadlines.
Right.
There's a whole other challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just about getting feedback, it's about getting the right feedback. And I think that that's what Antidote comes in.
Okay, so let's unpack this. From what I've gathered, Antidote is being called this like all-in-one platform for playtesting and user research. What does that actually mean in practice?
So imagine this. You're like a small indie studio with an awesome game idea, but you might not have a ton of resources. Antidote basically becomes your secret weapon. They handle everything from setting up playtests to securely distributing your game.
Wow.
To finding the perfect players to give you feedback. And we're not just talking about sending out a few emails and hoping for the best.
Right.
They have built-in systems for gathering data through surveys, even like face recordings if you want to see those reactions firsthand. And then they analyze all that data and they present it in a way that's actually useful for developers.
So it's like having a dedicated playtesting team at your fingertips without the overhead of actually having to hire a whole team.
Exactly.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah, it frees up developers to do what they do best, which is make awesome games.
Okay, well, something that I know keeps game devs up at night is security.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about unreleased games. What's Antidote doing to make sure that those precious game builds are on lockdown tighter than Fort Knox?
Yeah, this is what really impressed me about Antidote is their commitment to security is seriously top-notch. They use things like NDAs, player ID checks to ensure that everything stays confidential. And then when it comes to actually distributing the game to testers, they use secure cloud streaming or protected local installations, so there's no risk of unauthorized copies floating around.
Wow.
They even use technical safeguards like watermarking, so every single copy of the game can be traced back to its source. They really have thought of everything when it comes to creating a secure environment for testing.
Wow, it sounds like they've really gone above and beyond to address those security concerns.
They really have.
But security is only part of the equation. How does Antidote ensure that you're getting feedback from the right players?
That's the beauty of it.
Okay.
They have this huge, diverse community of players, and I mean diverse different skill levels, demographics, play styles, you name it.
Oh, wow.
They even consider what devices players use, which is important for making sure that the game runs smoothly across the board.
So it's not just about getting like a bunch of random opinions. It's about getting targeted feedback from players who actually represent your target audience.
Precisely. And that's something that traditional playtesting methods often struggle with.
Right.
You might end up with a bunch of hardcore RPG fans testing out your casual puzzle game.
Yeah.
Not exactly the ideal scenario.
Not at all. You need to know if your game is resonating with the right people.
Yeah.
It's all about finding those players who align with your vision.
And that's one of Antidote's biggest strengths. They don't just throw your game out into the void. They make sure it lands in the hands of players who are actually going to get it.
I like that.
They understand that to get valuable feedback, you need to find your people.
And to put it in more concrete terms, we actually have a quote here from someone who has used Antidote firsthand. Alex Curte-Maratin, a UX researcher at Remedy, said, "Their big gaming-oriented database allows any studio to find what they would be looking for, and Antidote staff are always willing to help and find the best solution to answer their clients' needs." That speaks volumes, doesn't it? It's not just about the platform itself, it's about the team behind it and their dedication to helping developers succeed.
Yeah, it is. It really does. And it's not just talk. They've got the results to back it up.
Right.
We've been diving into kind of the how of Antidote, but what about the why?
Right.
What are some of the concrete benefits that studios have seen after using the platform?
Yeah, that's what I'm really curious about. Yeah, knowing they've got this massive database of players and top-notch security is one thing, but how does that actually translate into a better game?
Well, one of the biggest benefits that studios report is actionable insights from target players, which makes sense considering everything we've just discussed.
Yeah, it's one thing to get feedback.
Right.
It's another thing to get feedback that you can actually use.
Exactly.
So it's not just a data dump. It's about providing developers with insights that they can actually turn into improvements.
Exactly. And it's all about speed, too.
Right.
Another major benefit that's reported is fast turnaround for execution and analysis. In the game dev world, time is always of the essence.
Especially with those tight deadlines.
Right. With traditional playtesting, you could be waiting weeks, even months.
Oh,
For results which can really throw a wrench into the development cycle. But Antidote streamlines that whole process.
right.
Developers are getting those crucial insights faster, which means they can make adjustments without derailing their entire production schedule.
So no more like agonizing wait times for feedback.
Exactly.
Antidote helps developers stay agile and keeps those creative juices flowing.
Exactly. And that leads perfectly into the next benefit. Met tight project deadlines.
Okay.
We all know how common crunch time is in the gaming industry.
Yeah.
Antidote wants to change that.
It's like they're saying, we're not just hitting deadlines. We're helping you avoid those late nights altogether.
Yeah. Exactly. By streamlining the playtesting process and providing actionable insights quickly, they're helping developers work smarter, not harder.
I like it.
Right.
Okay, I'm sensing a theme here.
Okay.
Antidote seems to be all about making developers' lives easier.
Yes.
And this next benefit really drives that point home. Removes stress from logistics and organization.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine coordinating playtesting can be a logistical nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. Recruiting participants, making sure they're right for your game, distributing the game, securely collecting and managing all that data. It's a lot to juggle.
Yeah.
Especially for smaller studios.
It's like they've taken this giant overwhelming to-do list and said, don't worry, we got this.
Precisely. And by taking care of all the heavy lifting, Antidote frees up developers to focus on what they're passionate about, designing and building incredible gaming experiences.
It's about letting them focus on the heart of the game, not getting bogged down in the logistics.
Exactly. And all of this ultimately leads to another significant benefit that studios have reported: boosted player retention and engagement.
Okay, now we're talking about the holy grail for game developers.
Right.
You can have the most stunning graphics and innovative gameplay in the world.
Right.
But if players lose interest after a few hours, it's game over.
Absolutely. And that's where getting those targeted insights from the right players throughout development makes all the difference.
Right.
It's about identifying those pain points early on, the things that might cause players to disengage, and addressing them before the game even launches.
So instead of scrambling to fix issues after the game is already out there, it's about building a better player experience from the ground up.
Exactly. And that's something that Antidote excels at by helping developers understand what makes players tick. They're ultimately helping them create games that people keep coming back to again and again.
This is fascinating stuff.
It is.
And last but certainly not least, we have maximum security and confidentiality. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth reiterating, right?
For sure, for sure.
We talked about how crucial it is for developers to protect their games, especially those unreleased ones.
Right.
And it really does sound like Antidote has that covered from every angle.
Yeah, they've built a system where studios can share their game and they have the confidence that it's in safe hands every step of the way.
That peace of mind is invaluable.
Absolutely.
Especially in such a competitive industry. It's funny, even if you're not a game developer,
Yeah.
I think there's a valuable lesson here
Oh, for sure.
for anyone who's listening. What Antidote is doing, it's like they're demonstrating the power of truly listening to your audience.
Yeah, it's that user-centric approach, right?
It's that user-centric approach again.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just make a great product.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that it's a great product for the people who are actually using it.
Exactly. And I think what Antidote does really well is they provide this really structured, insightful way to gather that feedback throughout the entire development process.
It's like they've created a roadmap for building better products.
Totally.
Whether it's a game, a piece of software, even a podcast, who knows? By incorporating that user feedback early, and often you're not just guessing what people want, you're knowing what people want.
And that knowledge is huge.
It's huge.
It can be the difference between, a product that totally flops and one that becomes like the next big thing.
I love that takeaway.
Yeah.
It's all about that continuous cycle of learning and improvement. So here's a final thought for you to ponder. What other industries could benefit from this Antidote approach? What would a world designed with this level of user centricity look like? Something to think about.